even more honored to know many of you for the first time and to have had such a warm welcome. They say that when you are close to home, you are a consultant. When you are 500 miles away, you are an expert. When you are many thousand miles away, you are a hero. Next time I'm going to China and see what happens. It has only been a few years since the study for the Center for the Study of Philanthropy in Israel has been established. Just looking at the working papers indicates how even if the philanthropic sector is not as developed as in the United States or other places, the research and the study of philanthropy is as developed as what we are doing. The papers are by title and by content as contemporary as any you will find. I am grateful, Hillel, for the invitation. I want to thank you and all of your staff, Hannah, Shaul, Nisam, Rautem, Kinneret, and also the students yesterday with whom I spoke for their good questions and interest in learning and in sharing their ideas. I have a lot to say, and I know you do too. But first of all, I just want to point out that when he listed all of my degrees, my 4 degrees, my father told me, if you have to go to school that long, you can't be very smart. He also told me I was a better father than he is. And I said, what do you mean? He said, look how wonderful your children are. And mine aren't so hot. I have several topics that I want to address today, and please, Hannah, where are you? I want you to make sure that I leave time for those questions, even if you have to come up and shut off my microphone. The first thing that I want to talk about is when we speak about philanthropy as part of the whole study of nonprofits and the third sector, we are talking about the supply side. And one of the major insights that we have developed, and once you say it, it is so simple, is that there is a supply and a demand side in philanthropy. The demand side is the need side. And many of you work on that need side. And you are the ones who fundraise. You are the ones that attempt to get resources so that you may help the beneficiaries. And then there's the supply side. The supply side is the donor base, the philanthropists, the corporations, and perhaps even, if you want to consider it, the government that contributes to the work of the nonprofit sector. But when we talk about philanthropy, we are talking about always philanthropists at the same time. So we're talking about those who ultimately provide the resources for the good work of nonprofit organizations. And because of this emphasis on the supply side, we have had a special focus on what it means to be a philanthropist. And it turns out that while we studied wealth holders, whatever we have learned about wealth holders has led us to understand the giving, the philanthropy of everyone along the economic spectrum. It turns out that certain motivations and certain meanings may be highlighted for wealth holders, just as certain meanings and motivations are highlighted for people of regular financial means. But in every case, the foundations for both groups, for the entire financial spectrum, turns out to be so close. And why is that? Now, maybe because I'm getting old, and maybe because I've gotten too pious, but I have a desire to tell you what my student said to me recently. She said, "You aren't teaching us about philanthropy." I said, "What?" She said, "You're teaching us about life." And so I want to put everything that I say today in the context that says, and be patient with me, that says philanthropy, formal philanthropy, what is given by people to nonprofit organizations, is not the best thing that people can do in their life. It is not the best thing that people can do with their money. It is noble, but it is no more noble than raising a child, taking care of a sick parent, dedicating your life to the service of others as a volunteer. And we will come back to that when we look at the root meaning of philanthropy as being about life and not about a special sector, not about tax-deductible gifts. And we will move towards saying that everything that I want to offer is true about formal philanthropy, but it's true about formal philanthropy because it's first true about our daily life. Let's see how that can be explained. The key term that I want to suggest in order to begin to study how we're talking about an understanding of life is the term moral biography. My students never understand my handwriting. They just pretend to. A moral biography is what all of us live. And to be very simple about it, what we are doing, we hope, with our lives is deepening our own moral biography, deepening the moral biography of our family, deepening the moral biography of people around us in these concentric circles beyond our blood, beyond our time, and beyond our space ultimately. And to be improving yours and others' moral biography, even if it is as close as you and your new baby, is as important, depending on your vocation, as extending your development of moral biography across the world and eventually to other planets. Do I believe there's life out there? There has to be. I know many people from outer space. A moral biography has two components. Capacity and care. Now, when I first studied philanthropy, I was studying wealth as the most important area of my research, and the most important area of capacity, of care, was philanthropy. But it turns out, when we all reflect on this, if we're looking at the moral biography of Odysseus, for example, my son studied the Odyssey in high school, and I asked him what you were learning. And he said Odysseus was coming back from the Trojan War, and he was looking for his home. And he would stop, and that was his goal. That's what he was after. He would stop at various places and be tempted to say, this is home. But it wasn't. It's like the Israelites. They thought that maybe their permanent home would be in Egypt. But it wasn't. Moses thought that perhaps his permanent moral biography was going to be as the heir apparent to the Pharaoh. And then he found out it was the son of Hebrew slaves. And then he found out it was to be a shepherd, right? And then one day there was a burning bush, and the Lord said to Moses, whether you like it or not, I'm going to make you a superstar. And so Moses had a new moral biography. And what Moses said to the burning bush, you are giving me this goal, this aspiration, this inspiration, this purpose. But what did Moses say? I don't have any capacity. And the Lord said to Moses, I will give you the capacity to do miracles and to go toe-to-toe with the Pharaoh. But then Moses had another objection. He was trying to get out of this. He loved living in the mountains where it was peaceful. He said, yeah, but I don't speak. I stutter. And the Lord said, don't worry. I'll take care of that capacity too. Your brother Aaron will speak for you. And so what we have in history is story after story. These deep religious stories, these epics. And we also find the mixture of capacity and purpose in subliterary forms, like comic books, Superman, Spider-Man. Now, my students don't know this, but maybe you do. Star Wars? Okay, I mean, they don't have any idea who Luke Skywalker is. Notice that Luke Skywalker was asked by Obi-Wan Kenobi to have the goal to be a Jedi Knight. And he said, no, I don't want any part of it. Then he found out that his aunt and uncle were killed by the Empire, and he said, okay, I'll be a Jedi Knight. And the first thing that Obi-Wan said to him, you better develop your capacity. And eventually he went to visit Yoda. You know Yoda? Yes. Backwards, I talk. And he had to be trained both in capacity and in proper purpose. And when he